Hi guys, happy Tuesday. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I saw you guys last. Let me give this a little share here. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. I see peepers. Those that's eyes. Hi, how are ya? How you doing? Happy Tuesday. How's your week going so far? I know it's only Tuesday, but I mean, you know, a lot can happen in 48 hours, right? Hi, Nancy. How are you? It's really hot in here, you guys. Hi, Barb. There's Miss Joan. Joan's in the house. Amy's here. Hi, Amy. I'm so happy to see you guys. Oh, gosh. My weekend wasn't quite long enough. And yesterday, I worked all day yesterday trying to catch up. I'm still trying to catch up. I hate that feeling. I don't like to be behind. How do you guys feel about it? Does it stress you out when you're behind? It drives me absolutely crazy. And I just cannot seem to get caught up, and I have so much going on this week. We have our regular lives that are scheduled. I also have two jewel loom lives for the monthly kit for this month. And let's see, what else is going on? I feel like there's something else I've got going on. I have other things on top of all of that. So I just feel like, you know, like, where is the time going? It's Tuesday, and like, I need to rewind and start back over because I need a whole extra day. Hi, Maria. We missed you too. Hey, Angela. How are you? So glad to see. I know what it is. It just hit me. I have a Michael's class tomorrow. I'm like, what else do I have going on? I have a Michael's class. In fact, that's actually what I was doing right before the live, was like trying to get my Michael's class design ready because I've got to do step outs because it's kind of a long project. So I need to get those step outs completed. If you've not signed up for the Michael's class for tomorrow, come and do that. You can sign up. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. But if you can't, because I realize a lot of you are like at work. Some of you are actually at work right now pretending that you're working. I see you. We won't tell on you. But they do upload those to the Michael's YouTube channel later, so you don't feel like you're missing out, because those will be there. I think it takes them like 48 hours, give or take, to upload. We had a really great class on Saturday if you got to come and be a part of that. It was a lot of fun. The earrings that we did were great. Tomorrow we're doing a bracelet that can be, it can actually be an anklet. It's a very beachy kind of summer themed macrame on the tying station, which you guys know is one of my very favorite things to do. So it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be an easy one. I love macrame because it's so easy, and once you get the knot down, then you're like free to do all kinds of fun things. So come sign up for that if you haven't yet. There's plenty of space, so don't let the website tell you otherwise. All right. Tell them I sent you. If you have problems, you let me know, right? Just kidding. Oh gosh. So let's talk about this week. What do we got going on this week? And then let's do a little hint teaser into next week, shall we? All right. So for today's project, we're going to make some easy earrings. I love these because they're very organic and kind of, I don't know. I think you'll like them. For those of you who are just starting out with wire wrapping, this is going to be a fun one because it's a great practice for wrapping. So that's what we're going to be doing for today. We're going to put together a fun little pair of earrings, and they can also be altered to be a pendant instead. On Thursday, we are doing a Throwback Thursday project, which means that I am taking an old design and giving it new life. And I really like it. I really like it. It's easy. You guys are going to remember the project when you see it. You're going to be like, oh, doing this once before, but I've like taken it to the next level, which is always exciting. So it's going to be a fun one. Let's see, Friday's kits, I'm in the middle of working on those. It's hard to get like everything together all at the same time, so that's happening. 2 kits are already ready. I want to try to put together at least 2 more before Friday. And then into next week, right? We are going to get to a project, I promise. I'm just giving you a little teaser, just a little teaser. Okay, so next week on Tuesday, I haven't quite decided what Tuesday's project is going to be, but let me double check before I say for sure. I'm fairly certain that it's Thursday of next week. Yep, Thursday, April 29th. So Thursday of next week, we're doing Sam's bead box, and Sam will be with us. So plan ahead for that because I love it. I can't wait to have Sam here again. So we're going to be using the beads from Sam's bead box for this month. And of course, you know, giving you a little teaser into the bead box for the next month coming up. So that is going to be fun. Also happening next week, you guys, is the paid group that is going to be opening up. I have mentioned this in the past, just kind of breezed past it. So I don't want to get too deep and involved because I am going to talk more about this on Tuesday of next week. But yeah, Jenna said she didn't get her text this morning. I know, I completely forgot. I'm sorry. I messed up and I didn't send a text this morning. I'm sorry, I forgot. But I'm going to tell you guys all about the paid group next week. It actually won't officially open until May 1st, which is just right after next week is over. But I am going to like pre-open so that those of you who want to go ahead and pay in advance, you can. So just a quick little rundown of what that's going to be, and then we'll dive deep on it on Tuesday. The paid group is going to be just an extra place for you to come where the projects are going to be a step up. So in our regular Sara Ellis Designs community, you guys know I give you 3 projects a week. A lot of times it's more than 3 because Fridays there's usually more than one project. But the paid group, those projects are going to be a little bit harder, a little bit more intensive, and we're going to do those in group format. And you're going to have access to some other things. You're going to have access to once a month, there will be somebody coming in from the industry who is going to chat with you guys and maybe show you something fun. There's going to be some events. There's going to be access to just some other perks that the regular Sara Ellis Designs community is not going to get. It's a really good value. I promise. It's not super expensive. In fact, it's all of it is under $30. It's not, you know, because it's not a kit. It's not a kit. I'm not selling you a kit, right? I'm just selling you a little bit of access, more one-on-one access to me. So like I said, we'll talk more about that on Tuesday so that you'll know all about it. But I do want to kind of tease that the very first special guest is going to be Meredith Roddy, and that's already on the calendar. So just be ready for all of that, because that's just the beginning of some great things that are going to happen with that paid group. More information on that next week. The regular group's going to just continue marching right along like it is. Nothing's going to change, okay? Nothing's changing, I promise. We're still just going to, I'm still looking for that machine where I can clone myself so I can do more things, okay? All right, so that's all of the housekeeping. Now let's get down to the project. I'm going to show you what the project looks like, okay? Because Facebook has not been letting me create events, so I haven't been able to share with you guys photos of the projects ahead of time, which really stinks, okay? It's not my fault, I promise. Facebook has its own issues. So this is the earring that we're making today. It's kind of free form, right? It's fun little guy, easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'm going to, well, I'm not going to, but you can alter this and turn this into a pendant, and instead of beads, you can do charms. I just think it's a fun little pair of earrings to put together. Quick and easy to get our week started. There was a question though. Let's see here. Let's see, backing up here. Question, Phyllis asks, I picked up some 26 bead, oh, I lost it. Where did it go? Shoot, Magoot. Hold on. What has happened here? Okay. Phyllis asks, I picked up some 26 gauge German style beading wire by mistake. What can I use it for? I think it's so, she thinks it's too soft. Okay, so yeah, 26 gauge is pretty soft. That's for sure. I can't get Joan's comment to not be so large. There we go. Joan's comment was like taking up the whole little thing. I was having trouble. I was reading it in this like tiny little space. So the 26 gauge wire is pretty tiny stuff. That's for sure. But I like to use it in place of like my 24 gauge wire because it is nice and soft, so you can bulk it up. I know you've probably seen me do this before where if we do like a wire wrap loop, Sometimes I'll go over those wraps a second time. I call that the like the slouchy sock. You can do that with your 26 gauge wire, and you can still use it for all of your wire wrapping needs. You just want to kind of double it up. Also, when you are making a wrapped loop, that loop that goes around the barrel of your round nose pliers, you can actually go around that twice to thicken up that loop as well. I'll show you what I mean with a piece of 24 gauge wire just so you can see. I think we've got time to do that. I'll just, we'll just pretend like I'm using the 26 instead of the 24, but that's a good question because I don't want you to feel like you've got wire that you can't use for anything, because you absolutely can. Okay, so don't feel like you made a bad decision. You didn't. You just need to kind of maybe bulk it up a little bit because it is really teeny tiny stuff. All right, so let's get down to business and put together our earrings, shall we? And then don't let me forget, at the end, I'll show you what I mean with the doubling up with the 26 gauge wire. Okay, so let me show you up close what our earrings project is going to look like. And of course, this is a large pair of earrings. You can definitely turn this into a pendant or make it much smaller if you want to. So just a little bit of wire going on here. As a matter of fact, I'm using 24 gauge wire for all of this little wire wrapping in here. You could use that 26 gauge wire for this as well if you wanted to, okay? The core of this is a piece of 18 gauge wire. It's about 6 inches long. That's what we're gonna grab. I have these I believe these are 10 millimeter beads. If they're not 10s, they're 8s. I wrote it down. I know Joan knows. Joan is my brain. Joan knows most everything. I can't get my gauge. Come on, little gauge. Here we go. Oh, sorry, you guys. Gosh. I can tell ya. 8s. So these are 8 millimeter beads. And then these little guys are like a 3x4 rondelle, but just a 4 millimeter bead is going to do it. So that's just, these are just the parts. This is going to be an easy one, okay? I promise. If you're not comfortable with wire wrapping, this is going to be a good practice one to make, okay? So the first thing you want to do is, oh, and I think I wrote down that was 18 gauge wire in the middle. Joan, do you remember, did I say 18 gauge wire? Because I'm actually going to use 20 for this. You can use either one. Colleen says, I want to be Joan when I grow up. Me too. I do too. Oh, I seriously cannot function without Joan. Like, that's no joke. And she knows it's true. She knows I cannot function in this world without her. Okay. She does all my numbers and all my dates and yeah. Okay, so Joan says I had put down 18 gauge wire for the core. So you can use 18 gauge wire for the core, or you can use 20. I actually pulled out 20 for, not 24, 20 for this project. So you can use either or, okay? You're gonna need about 6 inches of that. So just give or take a little bit. Doesn't have to be exact. And I'm just gonna trim that off, okay? So we've got ourselves about 6 inches of 20 or 18 gauge wire. And then as far as your 24 gauge wire is concerned, because you're going to need some 24 gauge as well, we are going to use about 18 inches of this. If you feel like you need a little extra for leverage, if you feel like you need a little extra, grab 20 inches. Give yourself an extra little bit. But for the most part, you're really only going to need about 24 inches of, I'm sorry, not 24 inches. Only going to need about 18 inches of your 24 gauge wire. Okay, so, that's so funny. Hold on, I gotta roll back on this one. So Pam says, oh, do we have to grow up? I want to play with beads forever. We don't have to grow up. We don't have to. It's completely optional. Okay, so I'm going to take my piece of 20 or 18 gauge wire, okay? And I'm going to hold it in my non-dominant hand. I did forget to send you a reminder. I'm so sorry. I was like, my brain's all over the place this week because I have so much going on. I completely forgot. So my apologies. You guys needed to send me a reminder today. I'm holding this wire over here in my non-dominant hand, and I've got my 24 gauge wire. I'm going to come down on the 18 or the 20 gauge wire about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that, okay? And I'm just going to cross those wires and hold them with my thumb, and I'm going to take the short end, and I just want to wrap that around about 4 times. And it is going to slide back and forth, okay? Just so you know. But all we want to do is just anchor that wire to our thicker gauge wire here. So also want to close up any of the spaces, if there are spaces, big gaps between your wraps, and do that. So you can see how there's a big space in mine. You can just do that with your pliers, okay? Don't feel like you gotta have extra fancy tools for that or anything. It's just your pliers. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch hands and put this back over here into my right hand, and the wire wrapping is actually over here on my left, which is probably the right to you guys because everything is backwards. But you know what I mean, okay? Non-dominant hand is holding the wrapping wire and holding on to the short end of our short one, or our oh my gosh, words, come on. We're holding all of the wire in our left hand. We have this long piece here coming out this direction. There we go. If I slow down. All right, now I'm gonna take one of my 8mm beads and I'm gonna thread that on and push it right up against where we anchored our wire, okay? And it is all gonna slide around, so it's very important that you're holding on to it with your fingers, okay? Now, I'm gonna bring in my little baby beads, these little rondelles. 4mm beads are perfect for this. And I'm gonna pick up 5 of those with my 24 gauge wire, okay? So I get excited and I start going really fast, and then I talk fast, and then you guys know, but it's because I get excited. All right, I want to drop those 5 little rondelles down. And now what I want to do is I want to guide the rondelles around the outer edge of our 8mm bead. What's going to happen is it's actually going to open up some space between our wire wraps and our bead. That's okay. Okay, so don't feel like you need to like mush all this together and why is there not enough space or anything like that, okay? Just make a little ruffled edge. It's okay. See that little daylight between our wraps and our bead? There's some over here on the other side as well. That's okay. Now, follow the natural path of the wire, which I did not do. So I need to take my wire to the back. So what I mean is the wire over here is coming this direction. It's coming up from behind, right? And going around this way. So pretending like we didn't add beads to this, the placement of the wire is it would go behind the larger gauge wire. Does that make sense? Yes, seed beads would look perfect with this. Okay, so just following the natural path of the wire. Don't do them both on the front or both on the back. You need to just follow that same path. Hold all of that in place and then wrap around at least once. That's going to let you kind of let go. You don't have to feel like you have to hold on so tight to everything. Okay, and as I'm working, I'm also very much straightening out my thicker gauge wire. I want to try to keep it as straight as possible. I don't want it to bow, and it will have a tendency to try to do that when you are doing the wire wrapping with the 24 gauge wire. So just be mindful of that. All right, now we're going to wrap around. We want about, I don't know, 5 or 6 wraps because I want a little extra space between our 2 rondelles. So if I only wrap around 3 times, okay, and then I try to thread on more rondelles, this rondelle and the next rondelle are not going to have enough room. They're going to be crowding each other out. So you want to give yourself at least 5 or 6 wire wraps before you do anything else, okay? And again, you can see the wire between the beads in this little space here. I need to stop pointing with my fingers because that's a little confusing. See that space between the bead and the wire wraps? Don't stress out about that. Okay, totally fine. All right, now we're going to add another one of our 8mm beads, and we're going to push it right up against the wire wraps that we just created. Okay, now we want to pick up 5 more of our little rondelles, and that's basically we're just going to repeat this the entire time. Like, this is a super quick project. Okay, so I'm going to pick up with my 24 gauge wire, picking up 5 rondelles. or just 4mm beads. They don't have to be rondelles. They can be seed beads, whatever you want them to be, okay? Now, same thing, want to guide those around the outer edge of our 8mm bead, following the same path of the wire. So it's coming over the top. Now it's going to go to the back. Do you see what I mean? Hi, Terry. And then we're going to wrap around once just to kind of lock everything in place. Now I don't feel like I have to hold so tight. But now you can really see how these two rondelles, they need their own little space. That's why this many wire wraps is important right here. Okay. So now we're going to wrap around about 6 times. Again, just making that same amount of space there. Okay. And we're ready to thread on another one of our, yeah, like little eyebrows or eyelashes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I see it now. We're going to thread on another 8mm bead. Grab some more of these little rondelles. Hold on. All right, now I'm going to use my 24 gauge wire, just treating it just like I would if it were a needle. I'm going to pick up 5 more rondelles. And guys, you can mix and match. I'm doing just all the same color. You can make these whatever color you want them to be. Your little rondelles, they don't all have to be the same color. They can be different. So the wire, the thick gauge wire, don't apologize. You didn't see it. It's all right. Don't ever apologize. So the thick gauge wire that my 8mm beads are going on, I'm using 20 gauge, but it can either be 20 gauge or 18 gauge. The wrapping wire that I'm using is 24 gauge, and they're both round wires, by the way. But sometimes that gets asked as well. Now I've got a little kink in my wire. Just have to unkink here. Don't like it when it does that. There we go. All right, so I'm going to drop down, maybe drop down lost my bead. What is happening? I lost my 8mm bead as I was unkinking that wire. Let me see if I can find it. Where did you go? Oh, rolled all the way over here. Okay. Sorry about that. Yes, you could make a rainbow. You totally could make a rainbow. In fact, I'm gonna show you how. Well, I'm not gonna show you how, but I'm gonna talk you through that process here. And just, they do look like blueberries. Oh my gosh. Okay, so another 8mm bead, and then I'm gonna take the wire, make our little arch shape. Need to go to the back of our thick gauge wire component here. Wrap around, and again, we're gonna do 5 or 6 wire wraps. Okay, ringing the bell. All right. So there's 3. Okay, we need 2 more. So I'm going to thread on another one of the 8mm beads. And then we're going to pick up 5 more of our rondelles. Oh, goodness. Are you sure it's not Monday? Because I'm feeling like it's a Monday. There's 3, 4, and 5. And, changing the colors, changing the kind of beads, you can change the size of these beads as well. So for instance, if you wanted this middle bead to be a larger bead, you could go up a size here. So you could do 2 little 4mm and then a 6mm, or 2 4mm and a 5mm. So you could change those up so that your little decorative arch on the outside is however you want it to be. Okay, you can really change that up, and it doesn't have to be 5 beads either. All right, coming to the back of our component, wrap around. Try to keep that thicker gauge wire nice and straight. It makes a difference, trust me. Okay, wrapping around a few times. And now we're ready to add 1 more of our 8mm beads. Okay, and we're going to pick up 5 more rondelles. And then we're going to wrap this into place, and I'm going to talk to you about something that Rosanna said, because you can go back through this a second, third, fourth, fifth time. if you want. I'm not going to, but I'm going to show you that it is something that you can do. Okay. All right. So our last little arch, little ruffle, lock that in place with some wire wraps here. All right. Now, ringing the bell. I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and go ahead and cut this off because I had excess wire. I always do. However, if I'm going to come down here to the other side and do the same, if you want to, okay, just to take this to the next level, instead of cutting off your wire at this point, you would turn around, okay, wrap back over these wraps and go the other direction. And this time, when you pick up your beads, you're going to go to the outside edge of your ruffle. So we're not following the arch of our bead. We're going to follow the arch of our little arch of smaller beads. So let's pretend for just a second. Let me grab a few more of these beads and just kind of show you what the placement would be. Okay, so if you wanted to double up or triple up or make just a big, beautiful beaded rainbow, when you're going back the other direction, you will still be connected over your wire wraps, right? But your next row of beads is going to go over the top of your first curve of beads. It's going to take more, obviously. So there's 5, but it's actually going to take like maybe 8 beads to go over that outer one. Let's pick up 2 more just to see what it would look like, or 3 more. But you're going to have to wiggle in between. You guys like it when we wiggle. We didn't wiggle on Saturday. A lot of you were disappointed there was no wiggling on Saturday. So now is your opportunity to wiggle. So that your little outer thing of beads here, you would need to wiggle in between these 2 rondelles to do your wire wrap in here, okay? And it's going to get crowded because you're going to start running out of space in between there, but it can be done. Now, this would be a great opportunity to switch up and use 24 gauge wire, 26 gauge wire instead of the 24. Because it's so much smaller, you will have an easier time getting in between those little spaces. So that's just something extra for anybody who wants to go a little extra and do an extra row of beads to make your little rainbow. But you don't have to do that. I'm just saying that is possible, and that's how you would do it, okay? All right, so now something I want to point out. I have way more space on this end than I do on this end, and I did not mean for that to happen. So what I want is I want to very, very carefully try to wiggle all my beads down. So I'm going to hold the tail, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle back and forth. We're doing some more wiggling here, and try to wiggle my entire beaded section down a little bit to even up the wire on either side, okay? And it didn't take much. We wiggled maybe a 1/2 inch. That was all it needed to be, just to kind of even up. All right, let's see. Let's roll back. Donna says, would it work to use 4 beads and nestle in between the first row? 4 beads and nestle in between the first row. So do you mean, let's just for instance, because if you don't mean this, this is also something you could do. I like to show so many different things. But do you mean going like through here? From here to here? Because you also can do that in between these little spaces. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, because that would be 2 beads instead of 4. But again, that's another opportunity to use 26 gauge wire, because you're going to have to actually go back through these beads right here to create a little circle, and the 24 gauge wire is a little too thick to do that, but the 26 would be perfect. For those of you who are just joining us, we had a question earlier about 26 gauge wire. That's why I keep bringing it up. So I'm actually using 24 gauge wire, but I'm not sure if that's what you meant, Donna. I'm not sure. I don't think that's what you meant. So if you can ask again, or maybe somebody else understood what you meant. I'm so sorry. I've totally missed. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to bring this around into a shape, because we're going to create this kind of flower shape. It's not a circle, right? It's not a circle. In fact, it's more like a star shape. So you can see how, like, up here it's going to come to a triangle point, but here it's really going to be kind of a rounded. So you can see it's supposed to be a flower. It looks more like a star, but when you're not looking at the wire and you're looking at the beads, it is a flower shape, at least to me. Okay, use your imagination. So in order to do this, we're not going to use any kind of mandrel or anything. We are just simply going to take our two ends and bring our ends together. And at first, it's not going to look like much of anything, okay? It's going to look like a hot mess, and that's okay. We're going to take these two wires. As it is wire, it's bendable. We're going to be able to fix it. But we're going to bring these two together. Okay, we're going to bring the two ends together, and one of them I'm going to bend to the back, just to kind of lock it in place. And then the other one, I'm going to bend straight up and down. That's really just going to kind of hold everything in place so that I'm not really struggling to keep everything secure. Okay, so all I did, right, is I just took one wire and bent it backwards. The other wire, I kind of straightened it up and down. Okay, this is the front, this is the back, just so you can see what I've done. Okay, now I'm going to take that wire that's to the back, bring it back up here, and I'm going to wire wrap around that straight wire about 3 times, 2 times, 3 times, whatever, whatever you can get with it. Okay. Go one more time for good measure. And I'm also going to bring in my pliers and straighten up those wraps, because they're not looking particularly pretty, and I want to straighten them up, and that's what your tools are for. Okay, so one more time, bring that wrap to the back, and then I'm going to trim off that tail. And I want to trim it back here on the back. Get as close as I can. Run your finger across it. Make sure that it's secure. Now, before we straighten out what our little shape is going to be, I'm going to bend the wire one more time. So I'm grabbing the wire right where it is exiting those wraps that we just created, and I'm just going to bend it over to one side. We're going to trim that off and work on that in just a second. But first, I really kind of want to play around with the shape of my flower here and get it the way that I want it to be. So either you're going to push it all in together to make it a little bit smaller, or you're going to pull it out a bit and make it more what you want it to be. But you manipulate that wire. That wire on the inside, you can make it however you want it to be. It's still very malleable, okay? It's, you can bend this into a teardrop shape. You can make this more of a circle. You can make it more of a star shape if you want to. It's really up to you. I just want to be sure that whatever shape I pick, they're going to match. Okay. Now, something else that I want you to keep in mind about this is that we used 5 8mm beads, and that really gave us this star kind of flowery shape. However, if you change that up and you make it only 4 beads, or you take it and make it 6 beads, your shape is going to be a little bit different, and you're going to be able to get more variety of shapes out of it. Also, I want to mention that you can make all of this smaller, okay? Because I know this is a big earring. You can make it a pendant, or you can make it smaller. So with your 8mm beads, you can take them down to a 6mm bead. You can also take it down to a 4mm bead. If you're going to take this one down to a 4mm bead, I would definitely go with seed beads for your outer edge, just so they don't crowd out your 4mm bead. Or at least something very, very small. I'm talking maybe a 2mm bead for your outer edge. all of those little adjustments are going to create a different kind of shape for you and give you obviously a different size for this as well. Okay. But all of that is changeable. None of this is set in stone. You can do this however you want to and get whatever results you want. Okay. And I actually need this wire to bend to the back. Actually, I want it to bend to the front. Just kidding. It's a good thing it's wire. I can just bend it however I want to. Okay. So I just manipulated my wire here to come to the front, and I'm going to trim off, and I'm going to do just a simple loop here. So I want to trim off and leave myself about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 of an inch, something like that. Okay. And trimming that off, I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to roll that wire back towards those wraps to create a loop. It doesn't have to be a perfect loop. Okay. All right, so now this is what we've got, and you can stop here if you want to. You don't have to go any further. You can stick an ear wire on this or thread this onto a piece of chain and call it a day, and you've got a really fun piece. But because I'm extra and I always take things to an over the top kind of place, I wanted to put some dangles behind mine. You don't have to. Obviously, you don't have to. You can skip this step altogether. But I'm going to take 3 pieces of chain in different sizes, or different lengths rather, okay? And I'm going to wire wrap some more of our little beads onto the ends of all of these pieces with some head pins. And then I want to put those back behind our component here. So I'm taking a head pin, I'm going to thread on 3 of our little rondelles, and you can do 2, you can do 1, makes no difference. You don't have to do this the way I do it. But I'm going to create a wrapped loop. So I'm holding the wire right where it is exiting the bead, and I'm going to bend it so that it is bending over the top barrel of the pliers. Okay. So when I take the pliers away, I've got that little amount of space in there. I'm coming in with the round nose pliers. I'm going to take that wire up and over the top barrel of the pliers, rotate the pliers, roll the pliers so that you can take that wire over to the other side to close up your loop, okay? Before I do my wire wrap though, I want to take it off of the tool, and I want to thread it through one of the bottom links of my chain. So I'm going to take the tip of that wire, thread it through, and then just pop those 2 together. So there's no jump ring here. You can use a jump ring if you want to, but I'm going to do it without the jump rings. Then I'm going to use my bent chain nose pliers to hold that loop and do my wire wrap between the loop and the top of my bead. Okay. And then I'm just going to come in with my cutter tool and trim that off. And I'm going to do that with the other 2 pieces of chain. Okay. So there's 1. Let's do 2 more. Three more beads. Do our wrapped loop, bending the wire, round nose pliers coming in, going up and over, roll the pliers, take the wire over to the other side, take it off of the tool so that you can thread the tail of that wire through the bottom link. Pop those 2 together. Ricky, they will. Just takes a little practice. And I can't even begin to tell you how many wrapped loops I've made in my lifetime. I could probably do this with my eyes closed. I literally do this in my sleep. Like, I dream about making jewelry. I'm sure that I wire wrap in my sleep. Which just goes to show how exciting my life is. All right, trimming off. Oh, somebody needs to have a chat with the Sandman, because I haven't had a Patrick Mahomes dream in a while. Like, what? Come on. Give a girl something fun. I just want to hold hands. All right, threading on. We're going to do 1 more. And I promise you, your wire wrapped loops look way better than you think they do. Everybody is so hard on themselves. It's so funny. Don't be so hard on yourself. I promise. Promise they look way better than you think. All right, last wrapped loop. I just want to hold hands. I'm keeping it G-rated. Come on now. Up and over. roll the pliers, take that wire over to the other side, okay? Taking the tail of that, threading it through a loop. Whoops, okay. And now I'm going to use my pliers or your fingers, whatever, to do your wraps in between there. And then we're going to put all this together. All right, so there's our wrapped loop. Cutter tool, trim that off. Make sure that it's nice and close. If it's not, come in with your pliers, push that wire down, okay? All right, excuse me. All right, now all we need is a couple of jump rings. Okay, and I'm gonna use 4mm jump rings just because they're tiny and, you know, unobtrusive, as it were. All right, so I'm gonna take a 4mm jump ring between two pairs of pliers, okay? And I'm gonna use one pair of pliers, hold them still. The other pair, I'm just gonna walk my jump ring open, okay? Just a twist. And now I'm going to thread on the ends of all of my chain pieces. And you can see once I get these threaded on, you can really tell how they are staggered, right? They're not all the same length. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here to my component and I'm going to attach this jump ring to our loop here. So before I close this jump ring, I'm just going to thread it on to the loop that we created at the top of the component and then close the jump ring back and let all of that fall to the back. Okay. Just like that. Now, if you don't want to use a jump ring there, you don't have to. You can just attach these directly to your wrapped loop if you want to. I'm just trying to keep it simple. And you don't really notice it, so. Okay, now, last thing is another 4mm jump ring. And this is my go-between jump ring for my loop on the top of my component and my ear wire, because those two loops are going the same direction. So I needed to use a 4mm jump ring in here so that everything would hang the correct direction. And that's it. Ta-da! So there you go. There's our little earrings, and they're not little by any means, or, you know, a pendant. And if you wanted to, instead of these little dangles back here, of course you can leave those off altogether, but you could put charms on this. So if I were going to turn this into a pendant instead of using them as earrings, I probably would put some charms down here. I might still add the beads, but I might add like some butterflies or maybe some little flower charms or something just a little bit more springy. Even some birds down here would be awesome. You know, just as something a little extra to make it more pendant-like, right? Those little changes definitely will take it from earring territory into pendant territory. That's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just saying, if it were me, that would be the kind of change that I would make before I hung it on a piece of chain and wore it as a necklace. Okay, now before we go. Before I turn you around so that you can see these, I do want to address that 26 gauge wire again, because I promised before we go forward that I would show you what I meant. I need a practice bead. Let's see if I can find something here that I can use. Surely I have a bead nearby. Okay. So if I were going to use my 26 gauge wire for things, right? All the things, whatever the things would be, then I would probably want to double it up for stuff. So if you're going to use it and you want to make your wrapped loops, what I would do is I would come down a little bit further on the wire than we normally do. So if we were going to make a regular wrapped loop, we'd only come down about an inch and a half, right? But I'm going to come down just a little bit further. Okay. I'm going to start out exactly the same way I would with everything. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers to take that wire up and over the top barrel of the pliers. Now, where I would make an adjustment would be right here. Instead of going ahead and rotating my pliers and all that, I would actually open my pliers up and take that wire around that top barrel of the pliers a second time. Just because that 26 gauge wire is so thin, I want to make sure that my wrapped loop is nice and sturdy. Okay, so I would wrap around the top barrel of the pliers twice and then proceed just like you would with your wraps. Okay, and I went a little short with my wire here, so I'm not going to be able to show it to you on this side, but I'll show it to you on the other side. But just doubling that up, like from the front, you would never even know, but that's really going to help you utilize that 26 gauge wire so that you don't feel like you've made a bad choice. So let's do it on the other side too, just to show you, because then I would also double up the wire wraps. So I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I'm going to bend and then come in with my round nose pliers. Okay. I'm going to go up and over the top barrel of the pliers, and I'm going to go around the pliers a second time, right? Just to double up that loop. And wire wrap, and then I would take my wire and I would double up the wire wraps too. So from the bottom, you know, you're going from the top of the loop to the top of the bead. Then we're going to go the opposite direction and give it that little slouchy sock. That's going to reinforce those wraps. That's really going to stiffen up, thicken up that 26 gauge wire. So you're going to be a little bit more confident using it for things like wire wrapping, because you know, it's still good wire. It's just very, very thin. Right? Very, very thin, and you want to be able to use it, but you want to also be able to trust it. And so to trust the strength, I would double it all up. So that just means doubling your loop and doubling your wraps. Okay. And you can use that for any time that you need extra security. It doesn't just have to be for 26 gauge wire. Sometimes I do it with my 24 gauge wire. It just depends, right? It just depends on what the circumstances are. Sometimes I do it just for fun, but a lot of times I do it for security with my extra thin wires. But that also gives you the opportunity to wire wrap things with tiny holes, like your gemstone beads and your pearls that are very finely reamed. Your 26 gauge wire might be the only thing that fits in there. So there you go. I hope I helped with that. I really, really don't want you to feel like you made a mistake. All right, so I'm going to turn you around. We're going to try these on, and then I'm going to let you guys go for the day. I'm actually going to run to the post office and come back and get some more work done. So let me put these on. I saw a question, so I'm going to answer that in just a second. Look how fun these are. I love them. I love them. They are big, but I love big earrings, right? You guys know I have no problems with big when it comes to that. But yeah, those are fun. Super, super fun. You can change up you can change up the chain as well. You can put a really pretty beaded chain back there. So there you go. Okay, so there were a couple of questions. Let me roll back real quick here. Pam wants to know where she can find the thin gauge head pins like in the earrings kits. So a lot of the thin gauged head pins that are in your kits, those came from Fire Mountain Gems, and they're really, really good quality. Some of them were duds. Like, if you got a dud, I'm really sorry. It happens. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the best quality head pins, eye pins in the entire world. Every once in a while you get a dud, and I don't know why that happens, but I just figure it's part of the manufacturing process. It happens with everybody. But they came from Fire Mountain Gems, and I'm a fan. Then there was another one. Let's see here. If a project calls for German wire and I don't have it, is there something else that's compatible? Well, you can use your dead soft wires, like your artistic wire. I really feel like it asks you to use the German style wire though for a reason, because your German style wire has a temper. It's a medium temper wire, which means it's not soft like your artistic wires or your copper core or your aluminum wires. Those are very soft and malleable, and for whatever reason, that project probably needs it to have a little bit more temper to it. You can try an artistic wire or a craft wire if you want to, but you may struggle with it. So German style wire, if you can't get German style wire, just see if you have anything that is like medium temper in your supplies. German style wire just happens to be the one that I know. So it really is going to just kind of depend. Jane says, what gauge are the thin head pins? They're 24 gauge. They're 24 gauge and they came from Fire Mountain Gems. Can you work harden soft wire? Yes, you can. To work harden your soft wire, you either want to run it through some nylon jaw pliers, or you want to put it on a steel block and hit it with a nylon hammer or a hard hammer, but that will change the structure of the wire. That's why I usually stick with the nylon hammer. But yeah, you definitely can work hardened soft wires like your artistic wire. You can harden it. It's just not ever going to be as hard as your German style wire. And you do have to work harder to work harden it, but it can be done. So there you go. Good questions today. I love it. I love it. I love it when you guys want to know, you know, there is no, I got to learn something new every day, right? I've never made it to a point in my jewelry making life where I'm like, oh, I know all there is to know. No way. No, what fun would that be? I want to know. I want to soak it all in like a sponge. So I love it. It gets me really excited that you guys feel that way too. That's why I like being a teacher. I just don't think I could have taught like, you know, high school English. Jewelry was definitely the way I needed to go. I don't think I would have had the patience for high school kids. But yeah. All right, guys, that's it for me today. Oh, let's show off these earrings again. I think they're super cute. I might put these in the shop. I don't know. I'm gonna wear them out today. See how I feel about them. Oh, I hope that I've inspired you to, you know, try a little something with your wire. Wire's fun. It's supposed to be fun. If you are frustrated with your wire work, you are trying way too hard. You need to give yourself grace. Give yourself a break and do something fun with it. Even if it means you spend 30 minutes just wadding it up into a ball and just being silly with it. Get yourself some practice wire and just play around with it. You never know when it's going to spark your creativity. So I hope I've inspired you. I hope that you will recreate these. Post them if you do. I want to see them. I love seeing everybody's bead choices. That's always exciting. So post them if you recreate them. I will see you guys tomorrow at 2 p.m. over on the Michaels website for a class. Otherwise, I will see you guys here on Thursday at 1 p.m. with another fun project for you guys. Can't wait to show you that one. It's going to be we're going to do some more wire wrapping that everybody can do. So join me for that. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you guys soon.